On March 22nd, 1977, CharlesMorgan, better known as Chuck to family and friends, left his home and brought his 2 daughters to school. That night, he failed to return home, and his wife Ruth reported him missing. 3 days passed by without any sign of Chuck's return. No calls had been received, no friends or acquaintances had seen him, and the police, as they often do, took little interest in what was in their eyes a common occurrence, more often than not remedied by the passing of time. They were right, however, the return of CharlesMorgan was more than disconcerting for his family. It was 2 a.m. when his wife heard loud thumping at the back door. Naturally, she made her way to the source of the commotion and opened the door to see who it was. Before her stood Charles. His hands were bound with a plastic zip tie, and he had a plastic handcuff dangling from one of his ankles. No answers were given to the questions of concern Ruth had for her husband. She quickly realised that he was unable to do so and asked Chuck if he was capable of writing. He responded with an affirmative nod of the head. She quickly went to a drawer and took out a notepad and pen. Her husband told her that he had been kidnapped and tortured. What's more, he said that he had an hallucinogenic drug in his throat, some reports say painted on his throat. This, according to him, is why he was unable to speak. Should he do so, the hallucinogenic component would be ingested, and this will cause harm to his nervous system and possibly death. Another aspect of that night, which Ruth notes, was his vehement requests to have his car moved from the front driveway and his admonitions against calling law enforcement. The first request was made because he feared an unknown person or party would know he was back in his residence. The second request revolved around a fear he had for his and his family's fate should the authorities be notified. During the next week, Ruth would nurse and care for her husband, going so far as to feed him water through a dropper. He made a number of vague suggestions regarding a 2 or 3 year stint as a secret agent for the government. Apparently, his involvement with the state concerned attempts to tackle the growing problem of organised crime in the city of Tucson. There was good reason for state authorities to be interested in the activities of criminals in the Arizona area. During the 1970s, a money laundering scheme had been implemented by a number of illegal outfits, including the mafia. These organisations utilised a particular state law which allowed for the purchasing of land using what are known as blind trust accounts. This meant individuals and groups could buy land without needing to present any identifying information. In subsequent years, it has been reported that during the 70s, as many as 500 racketeering operations were in existence in Arizona. CharlesMorgan had alluded to ongoing money laundering operations to his wife in the months and years before his 3-day disappearance. He had done so with the caveat that he was not implicated in any of these illegal dealings. As an escrow, he was certainly in a position to know people that were, and he was most definitely in a position to be taking part in them, or acting on behalf of a state organisation seeking information on these dealings. After being nursed back to health, Morgan went about his days in a paranoid state of fear. He took to wearing bulletproof vests wherever he went, and no one other than himself was allowed to drive his daughters to and from school. School personnel were also notified that no one apart from him was to collect the girls at the end of the day. He also made an ominous statement while in conversation with his father. Chuck stated that a letter was present which would outline who was responsible if anything should happen to him. On June 7th, 2 months after his initial disappearance, Chuck Morgan went missing again. It would be 9 days before Ruth received any information regarding her husband's condition. She received a strange call from a woman who would not identify herself. This woman simply said, and I quote, "Chuck is all right, Ecclesiastes 12, 1-8, unquote. Here is that passage. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. while the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the window be darkened. And the doors shall be shut in the streets, when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. Also, when they shall be afraid of that which is nigh, and fear shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail, because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets. Or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity. We will come back to these verses later on to see if we can extract some meaning from them. 2 days after this short phone call, CharlesMorgan was found dead. The cause of death was a bullet wound to the back of the head with Morgan's own Magnum .357. The weapon was found lying next to his body. Ironically, he was still wearing his bulletproof vest. In his car, police found various weapons and a healthy supply of ammunition. A number of other salient anomalies at the scene have been pointed to in the years after his death. For example, his car had been altered to unlock from the fender, and there was no fingerprints found anywhere, not even on the gun. When tests were ran to find out if there was any gunpowder on Morgan's hands, they found some, but it was on his left hand. He was right-handed. Inside his belt buckle, a knife was hidden, and inside the back of his car, police found a handkerchief within which a tooth of Morgan's had been wrapped. There was also a piece of paper with directions to the location where his body would be found. Police also discovered a pair of sunglasses that didn't belong to Morgan. The strangest of all things discovered was a $2 bill that was in his underwear. A number of words in different languages were written on it, and there was also drawings referencing Freemasonry. There was also a number of Spanish names written from A to G in alphabetical order. They were as follows: Acevedo, Bejarano, Hierro, Duarte, Encinas, Fuente, and Gradilas. Above the names, the scripture given by the woman who had rang Ruth was written, Ecclesiastes 12, and arrows pointed at the numbers 1 and 8 within the bill's serial number. On the other side, the signers of the Declaration of Independence were numbered 1 through 7, and there was a roughly drawn map. The map related to the town of Robles Junction and Salas City, an area between Tucson and Mexico synonymous with drug smuggling. Even with all these strange characteristics, police believed that Morgan had killed himself. For his wife and many others, this theory was ludicrous. 2 days after the discovery of Morgan's body, police received a call from a woman who called herself, and I quote, Green Eyes. She said that she had met with Charles at a motel shortly before he died. According to her, he was in possession of $60,000 that was to be given to a contract killer who had been hired by the mob to kill him. She also stated that she was the woman who had called Ruth Morgan and gave her the short message mentioned before. When police inquired into Charles's last days, they did find out he had been staying at the Westside Motel for over a week before his death. If things weren't strange enough, Ruth was visited by 2 men claiming to be members of the FBI. This was 3 weeks after her husband had been found. At the time, she was bereaved and confused and didn't think to ask them for a search warrant. According to her, the 2 men showed her some badges, walked into her house and ransacked it in search of something they never found. To this day, it has not been ascertained whether these men were in fact from the FBI. When contacted, the agency said they had no record related to a Charles C. Morgan, nor did they know who he was. There seems to be no doubt that Chuck Morgan became irrevocably tied up with the wrong people. As to how many different interests he was connected to is up for debate. Clearly, organised crime had something to do with the circumstances that transpired, but there's many more anomalies which require some sort of explanation. For example, who was the woman who contacted Ruth, and why did she mention the scripture found in the book of Ecclesiastes? We looked at some Bible commentaries associated with this passage. Its main message is that all will grow from young to old and lose all those valuable and somewhat foolish instincts associated with youth. Rather than life being pleasing, the old in this verse have come to realise that everything in this life is absurd when viewed from death's perspective. Though it's a valuable message to ponder, we can't see why it would be relevant to the disappearance and death of Morgan. Maybe some of you viewers might have some theories. We also have the names written down on the $2 bill that appear to be some sort of code, and there is Masonic symbolism that has led many to believe that this secretive organisation had something to do with his death. The one thing we can draw from all of this is that there does seem to be an overlapping between organised crime and the authorities, especially from Chuck Morgan's perspective. From his behaviour, we can see that he does not trust either side of the spectrum. Many have suspected government officials who are not acting on behalf of any state agency. Rather, they had taken a renegade position alongside organised crime to make money from nefarious dealings. A journalist by the name of Don Devereaux discovered that Morgan was heavily involved in money laundering activities through his escrow company. It was also found that he was making platinum and gold transactions on a weekly basis. Annually, it's believed he was dealing with transactions worth $1 billion. Much of the money was coming out of Southeast Asia and appears to have been linked to the Vietnam area, an area which the United States military had not long left. The nail in the coffin, according to the now deceased Devereaux, was a list of records that Morgan was keeping. Ironically, he probably thought keeping these records would protect him from being made a victim of those profiteering from illegal dealings. In contrast, these records were likely deemed to be highly sensitive information by those fearing exposure. Morgan simply knew too much and had duplicate copies which would back up his story should he be in need of a bargaining tool. What happened to Charles C. Morgan? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Once again, thanks to everyone for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do make sure to like, comment and share. And if you want similar content, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. As always, until the next time, do take care.